Hello students, welcome to the lecture on training and development, and after this lecture we will be able to learn the following objectives: understand the role of training, discuss on training process, explain the methods of training and development, understand training evaluation, define the importance of training and development, explain human resources development mechanism. First of all, let me tell you the importance of training. Training and development programs optimize employee productivity, enhance professional and personal development, and assist the entity in accomplishing its goals and objectives. All entities strive for higher levels of organizational performance. The ongoing training and development of all employees plays a vital role in this quest for maximum efficiency and effectiveness. In fact, the process of training and developing human resources begins with new employee orientation and continues throughout the employee tenures with the entity. Rapidly changing legal, technological, economic, and sociological environments further dictate that employees possess the knowledge and skills required by new and more demanding assignments. The need for improved productivity has become universally accepted, and that it depends on efficient and effective training is not less apparent. It has further become necessary in view of advancement in modern world to invest in training. Thus, the role played by staff training and development can no longer be overemphasized. Training and development are based on the premise that staff skills need to be improved for organization to grow. Training is a systematic development of knowledge, skills, and attitudes required by employees to perform adequately on a given task or job. New entrants into organization have various skills, though not all are relevant to organization needs. Training and development are required for staff to enable them work towards taking the organization to its expected destination. Training can be put in a context relevant to school administrators. However, knowledge is the ability, the skill, the understanding, the information which every individual requires acquiring in order to be able to function effectively and perform efficiently.
Training is the process of teaching employees the basic skills they need to perform their jobs or for developing additional skills. The firm's training programs must make sense in terms of the company's strategic goals. For example, if one of the goals of the company is to expand its international market, then one of the things they may focus on is training their employees in multiple languages. Also, training is part of the larger issue of performance management. This is an integrated, goal-oriented approach to assigning, training, assessing, and rewarding employees' performance. Managers set goals for their employees, and training is one of the ways an organization helps an employee meet those goals.
Did you know the early 28th century witnessed the emergence of training and development as a profession, resulting in the creation of training associations and societies? The role of an employer's organization in training has to be viewed from different perspectives. First and foremost, it must be viewed from an internal point of view, that is, the training and development of its staff. This is essential to the effectiveness of the organization. Training services as well as the other services it provides members, all of which fall within the following: influencing the legal and policy environment needed for business growth and development. Direct services to members. This requires that the staff be trained in the areas of the organization services and core competencies, which may include areas such as industrial relation, human resource management, occupational safety, and health. This objective of training, that is to make its other services more effective, involves mostly the acquisition of knowledge needed for staff to perform their function. This is an important prerequisite to staff undertaking the second role of an employer's organization in training, which is to provide training to members and sometimes to non-members in areas in which they expect services. But unlike in the case of the first objective of training, earlier referred to, the second role or objective requires not only knowledge in the areas of training, but also training skill, that is, in training technique or methodologies. If staff do not develop training skill, they will be able to transfer knowledge, but not the skills to apply the knowledge to particular situations which arise in enterprises. Productivity is increasingly the application of knowledge. Examples include negotiation, workplace mechanism to improve workplace relation, and human resource management policies and practices such as recruitment, selection, induction, performance appraisal, leadership and motivation, employee retention. A fourth role is for an employer's organization to raise awareness among employers of the need for increased investment in the development of human capital as an essential condition for achieving competitiveness. A fifth role is in the training of personal or human resource managers, given the fact that their role still tends to be downgraded related to other management functions such as finance, marketing and production. This role could also be undertaken through training support given to professional bodies like an Institute of Personnel Management. A sixth role for an employer's organization is the provision of advisory services to member companies by assisting trainers in enterprises to develop or improve their in-house training programs, especially in the areas of the employer's organization expertise. Upgrading the knowledge of company trainers, maintaining a directory of relevant training programs or courses. Seventh, an employer's organization should be able to influence the provision of training incentives to be offered to employers through the tax system or training levies. Numerous examples in countries abound which can provide useful ideas to employees' organization. 8th or 9th employers' organization could develop training material to be used by enterprises for in-house training. Training materials are important because they provide the means to educate learners. Many training materials are used to facilitate the learning process. These materials are normally selected by an instructional designer who understands adult learning and instructional design principles and methodologies. Training manuals are generally used in classroom environments and their page numbers vary in length. Instructor-led manuals are developed specifically for instructors. They are very similar to student manuals, but additional information is added to enable instructor to guide the class. The additional information may be in the form of notes, including explanation that the instructor may give in class and or details about activities to assist an instructor during the facilitation of training. Job aids enable learners to have the right information at the right time, in the right format and in the right place. Job aids may be small boards that explain codes, methods for completing processes at work, or brief explanation of how a customer service representative should respond to a customer in a call center environment. Back to the basic, it all begins with overhead projectors and presentation conducted with Microsoft PowerPoint slides. These training materials are still used today, especially for large audiences. Additional training materials include items used to conduct training warm-ups and training activities such as flashcards, a ball or an egg for games of flip cards, blackboards, dry erase boards, paper clips, post-its, markers, colored pencil and glue. Students, now coming on to the next topic, let's discuss about the training process. According to the concept of human development, income is clearly only one option that people would like to have, albeit an important one. Development must therefore be more than just the expansion of income and wealth, since administering involves the creation and maintenance of an environment for performance, working closely or in isolation towards accomplishment of common goals. It is obvious that administrators cannot be successful without well-skilled and well-trained people. The importance of incorporating training into organizational or institutional roles, the staffing of these roles and the entire process of direction and leading people must be premises on knowledge and skills. Man is dynamic in nature. The need to be current and relevant in all spheres of human endeavors makes staff development a necessity to keep track with current events and methods. The attention of the entire sundry of the inestimable value of training and development. It is an avenue to acquire more and new knowledge and develop further the skills and techniques to function effectively. Scholars, experts, social scientists, and school administrators now recognize the fact that training is obviously indispensable not only in the development of the individual but also facilitate the productive capacity of the workers. Training is not coaching or persuading people to do what is wanted, but rather a process of creating organizational conditions that will cause personnel to strive for better performance.
The training process includes these 5 steps. It is important that each step in the process be completed thoroughly because each builds on the other. The more time and effort spent on the previous step, the better the next steps can be. Step 1, Needs Analysis, identifies the training needs of an employee. The 2 main ways of identifying those needs are through a task analysis and a performance analysis. The task analysis is a detailed study of a job to identify the specific skills required, especially for new employees. A task analysis record form can also be used. Here is an example of this form for a printing press operator. The task analyses contain the following information: a task list, when and how often each task is performed, the quantity and quality of performance expected, the working conditions, the skills or knowledge required, and where those can be best learned. The second type of needs analysis is a performance analysis. The goal here is to verify if there is a performance deficiency and to determine whether that deficiency should be corrected through training or through some other means, such as transferring the employee. There are several methods that can be used to identify an employee's training needs, including 360-degree performance reviews, job-related performance data, observations by supervisors or other specialists, and tests of things like job knowledge and skills. When beginning the discussion of what types of training methods to use, there are several tips to keep in mind to make the training more effective. First, the learning needs to be meaningful. Material that is meaningful is usually easier for trainees to understand and remember. For example, it is important at the start of training to provide a bird's-eye view of the material to be presented. It is also valuable to use a variety of familiar examples and to organize the information so it can be presented logically and in meaningful units. Second, it is imperative to design the training to make it easy for the skills being learned to transfer from the training site to the job site. This can be accomplished by maximizing the similarity between the training environment and the work situation, and by providing time for adequate practice. It is also important to provide a heads-up or some preparatory information that lets trainees know what problems or situations may occur on the job. Lastly, it is important to motivate the learner. This is easily done by defining for the learner why the training is important and how it will benefit them. People learn best by doing, so provide as much realistic practice as possible and allow them to learn at their own pace. Trainees also learn best when the trainers immediately reinforce correct responses. With this in mind, take a look at several different methods organizations can use when designing their training. I will not spend time discussing all of them, as you can read about them in your text, but understand that each method has advantages and disadvantages. Thus, depending on the situation, each method can be a valuable tool for teaching employees new skills and behaviors. Step 3 is the validation process. By now, the term validity should be a familiar one. We discussed this in great detail during the selection chapter when we talked about how organizations create valid selection measures for hiring new employees. In order to determine a training's validity, the company must test the training on a sample of employees to see if those who receive the training have better performance on the job than those who did not receive the training. This sampling process should be conducted on multiple groups to make sure the training is valid. Implementation, step 4, is the easiest to do if all previous steps have been done well. Now we simply need to train the employees that need to learn this skill or behavior. It is important to schedule the training at a time when the employee is fresh and that the training is broken down into small segments to lower the chance of fatigue. Step 5, evaluating the training, is the most overlooked step. In many instances, organizations will spend a lot of time and resources on the first 4 steps and then completely forget about what is arguably the most important part of the training process. My point is that it makes no sense for organizations to spend hundreds or even tens of thousands of dollars on designing a training program to not have any proof that the training actually has proven results.
As well as giving people new skills and knowledge and maintaining existing skills, training can increase people's confidence, confirm to people the value of what they are already doing, enable people to pass on new skills to colleagues in the workplace, raise general awareness, change people's attitudes, improve morale. One definition of training is the process of bringing a person to an accurate standard of skill by practice and instruction. Another definition is a trainer and participant working together to transfer information from the trainer to the participant to develop the participant knowledge, attitudes or skills so they can perform work tasks better. Taken together, these definitions say two things. Training is directed towards agreed standards or objectives. These are sometimes called learning outcomes. What we want people to learn from training. The person being trained participates with the trainer in the training activity rather than simply receiving instruction. Teaching and training are about communicating information and facilitating learning. Learning is what people do when they receive that information. But learning is more than collecting information. It must also involve a permanent change in behavior, attitude or understanding. For example, health workers have only truly learned about a new drug if they fully understand when and how the drug should be used, not just if they have learned the name of the drug. Training is a means of communicating new knowledge and skills and changing attitudes. It can raise awareness and provide people with the opportunity to explore their existing knowledge and skills. But to be effective, training should be based on the needs of the people who are being trained, the participants. Training needs should be identified by both participant and their manager. Training should not only meet the needs of people being trained, but should meet the needs of the organization or project they are working for and contribute to better services or standards for your service users. A training need is the gap between what somebody already knows and what they need to know to do their job or fulfill their role effectively. By identifying training needs, trainers can decide what the objective of the planned training should be. The first step in identifying training needs is to assess the current level of knowledge and skills of the participants. The second step is to clarify what skills, knowledge and attitudes people need to do their jobs or tasks. An assessment of training needs can be done in a number of ways. Question need to be clear, specific and simple. Avoid closed question, that is those having a yes or no answer, as these identify what people think they know rather than what they actually know. Questions should be geared towards finding out whether people have the skills and knowledge we think they need to do their jobs effectively. Group discussion with participants. These enable health workers to share comments and observation about what is happening in their workplaces and what skills they feel they may need. Training is an ongoing process. Participants need support and encouragement to use their new knowledge and skill in their work. Ideally, training programs should give participants the opportunity to give feedback on the training they have received and problems encountered in applying it in their everyday work. Suggested procedures organized according to the elements of a finding are listed below. They should be expanded or tailored to fit the specific entity being reviewed. General criteria applicable to the training and development process are as follows. The State Employee Training Act of 1969 provides that available public funds may be used for the education and training of state employees in programs related to either current or prospective duty assignments. State law requires all state agencies, including public institutions of higher education that have 3 or more complaints of employment discrimination during each year of the beginning, to expand appropriated funds to receive training on compliance with state and federal laws prohibiting employment discrimination. Each agency shall pay all training costs or reimburse the taxes, commission or human rights for its costs associated with this training through inter-agency contracts. Other training and development provisions generally applicable to specific entities are usually included in each entity's appropriations in the General Appropriations Act. The criteria related to the basic phases of the training and development process are as follows. Develop a training and development plan that is linked to the entity's strategy. An entity should have both short-term and long-range training and development plans with both clearly stated objectives and a direct relationship to the entity's mission and goals. Training and development plans. An entity should have a long-range training and development plan and annual short-term plans which tie into the long-range plan. Training and development schedule. A training and development schedule is necessary to prevent duplication of effort, especially if the entity has more than one site. The scheduling of courses should be appropriate based on the entity's technical and strategic needs. Training and development records. The entity needs a method of tracking internal and external training and development given to its employees. These records must also track the continuing professionals education (CPE) credits needed by staff professionals. On the job training coaching. This reaches to the formal training on the job. A worker becomes experienced on the job over time due to modification of job behaviors at the point of training or acquisition of skills. Induction or orientation. This is carried out for new entrants on the job to make them familiar with the total corporate requirements like norms, ethics, values, rules and regulation. Apprenticeship. A method of training where an unskilled person understudies a skilled person. Demonstration. Teaching by example whereby the skilled worker performs the job and the unskilled closely observes so as to understand the job. Vestibule. This is done through industrial attachment for the purpose of skills and technology transfer. It is therefore achieved through placement of an individual within another area of relevant work organization. The effect is the acquisition of practical and specialized skills. Understudy. This is good for succession planning. This allows for smooth transition of work when one officer leaves a scheduled organization. Job rotation. It is necessary for all workers to move from one schedule to the other within the same organization to allow for competence on all spheres of work. Self-development or self-assessment. Self-development means a personal desire to improve through an individual attempt to embark on study and practical explosive that are independent of an organization, role and contribution. Can anyone tell me what is training evaluation? The process of examining a training program is called training evaluation. Training evaluation checks whether training has had the desired effect. Training evaluation ensures that whether candidates are able to implement their learning in their respective workplaces or to their regular work routines. The main purposes of training evaluation are feedback. It helps in giving feedback to the candidates by defining the objectives and linking it to learning outcomes. Research. It helps in ascertaining the relationship between acquired knowledge, transfer of knowledge at the workplace and training.
Hello, my name is Cheryl. I worked with Jim and Wendy Kirkpatrick and several agency representatives to create the Training Evaluation Field Guide as a tool for federal agencies. This is Cassie. Cassie will be graphically facilitating for us today as I briefly talk to you about training evaluation in general and the Training Evaluation Field Guide specifically. Cassie and I work in the Training and Executive Development Group, or TED, at the Office of Personnel Management in Washington, D.C. Our group's mission is to design policy and programs to ensure the government's learning and development efforts support strategic human capital investments in leadership, knowledge, and talent management. In other words, we facilitate mission accomplishment. That's the job of training and development, to partner with other agencies and agency functions to ensure all employees have the capacity to meet and exceed stakeholders, customers, and the public's expectations. In order to meet these expectations, we must first know what they are, which is exactly where training evaluation begins. There are several legislative requirements for training evaluation, including Chapter 5 of the Code of Federal Regulations, Part 410. The CFR states that agencies must evaluate their training programs annually. This regulatory requirement was one of the main triggers for the Training Evaluation Field Guide. Other triggers were the Open Government Initiative, the necessity for cost-effective training solutions, and agency chief learning officers charged to collaborate and share ideas and best practices. So why evaluate? Because it's required? Yes, but that isn't the only reason. If you do not evaluate, you're going on a journey with no destination. Or as the famous Yogi Berra expressed it, if you don't know where you're going, chances are you will end up somewhere else. I don't know if he sounded like that, but I'm sure he didn't sound like this. In the federal government, we literally cannot afford to end up somewhere else. The field guide was created to be a paint-by-numbers bridge from the learning gap to the anticipated business result. The guide can be used by anyone responsible for training evaluation, even if they are not technically trainers. The field guide addresses critical steps like problem identification, discussions with those invested in the training outcome, seeing if the problem can be solved with training, and tracking progress along the way. Now, we know that there are several external factors that also contribute to the accomplishment of the business result, like supervisory support, the agency learning culture, and the learner's motivation. Nevertheless, training does have a 100% responsibility in fulfilling its role in facilitating mission accomplishment. We want users of the Training Evaluation Field Guide to move from questioning training's value to strengthening training's contribution.
Training and development helps in optimizing the utilization of human resource that further helps the employee to achieve the organizational goals as well as their individual goals. Training and development helps to provide an opportunity and broad structure for the development of human resources, technical and behavioral skills in an organization. It also helps the employees in attaining personal growth. Training and development helps in increasing the job knowledge and skills of employees at each level. It helps to expand the horizons of human intellect and an overall personality of the employees. Training and development helps in increasing the productivity of the employees that helps the organization further to achieve its long-term goal. Training and development helps in inculcating the sense of teamwork, team spirit, and inter-team collaboration. It helps in inculcating the zeal to learn within the employees. Training and development helps to develop and improve the organizational health culture and effectiveness. It helps in creating the learning culture within the organization. Now, in the end, let us summarize what we have learned in this lecture. Training and development are based on the premise that staff skills need to be improved for organization to grow. The objective of training, that is to make its other services more effective, involves mostly the acquisition of knowledge needed for staff to perform their function. Training materials are important because they provide the means to educate learners. Job aids enable learners to have the right information at the right time, in the right format, and in the right place. Training and development needs may be identified through performance, evaluation, quality assurance, processes, or entity goals and objectives. Self-development means a person's desire to improve through an individual's attempt to embark on study and practical explosive that are independent of an organization, role, and contribution.